April 1945. Berlin, once the proud heart of the Third Reich, was now a burning skeleton of a city, swallowed by smoke, rubble, and despair. The night sky pulsed red, glowing with the infernal light of thousands of explosions. Overhead, the thunder of Soviet artillery turned the heavens into a sea of fire. Yet amid this apocalypse, a few colossal shapes still stood, the flak towers. Giant fortresses of concrete and steel, built to protect the Reich's capital, now belched fire into the night, their anti-aircraft guns blazing in defiance. Their tracers painted the sky like veins of molten light. It was beautiful and horrifying. These towers, Hitler's invincible bastions, were now the funeral pyres of his empire. Inside the thick concrete walls, tens of thousands of Berliners huddled in the dark. The air was thick with smoke and fear. Children cried. Old men prayed. Soldiers bled. Each explosion outside made the walls tremble. Above them, gunners continued to fire, their faces illuminated by the red glow of their own extinction. The roar of the 128mm cannons echoed across the city so bright that some said the towers lit the heavens themselves. They did not fire to win. They fired to die standing. The Soviet army had surrounded Berlin. Every street had become a fortress, every basement a tomb. The once mighty Wehrmacht was reduced to desperate teenagers and old men clutching Panzerfausts. The Reich, which had promised 1,000 years, had lasted barely 12. Still, they fought. In the Führer bunker, deep beneath the Reich chancellery, Hitler stared blankly at the crumbling maps on his wall. His voice was barely more than a whisper, issuing orders to divisions that no longer existed. Above him, the earth shook with the impact of Soviet shells. Outside, the Red Army pressed in from all directions, north, east, south, burning and blasting its way toward the Reichstag. Yet even as the city fell, the flak tower still burned against the night. The Zoo Tower, the most powerful of them all, continued firing long after all hope was lost. From its upper decks, giant anti-aircraft guns hurled shells into the sky, lighting up the ruins below. For miles around, the flashes could be seen dancing across the smoke clouds like lightning in a storm. Inside, medics worked frantically to bandage the wounded with scraps of cloth. There was no medicine, no morphine, only the will to survive a few hours longer. Mothers covered their children's ears. Officers wept silently. And yet, through the madness, the gunners kept firing, because stopping meant surrender, and surrender was unthinkable. This was not a battle anymore. It was a ritual, the final act of a delusion dying in fire. At dawn, Soviet troops stormed the Tiergarten. Tanks rolled past the shattered Brandenburg Gate. The Reichstag, once the symbol of German pride, was a burning ruin. Red flags rose where eagles had once perched. Inside his bunker, Hitler wrote his last testament and married Eva Braun. Then, on April 30th, he ended his life as the city above him burned. When Soviet soldiers finally reached the center of Berlin, the flak towers were still standing. Their concrete walls were nearly indestructible, built so strong that explosives barely scratched them. Even days after the fighting ended, smoke continued to pour from their vents, glowing in the night. Berliners said the towers seemed to shine like torches, monuments to madness, defiance, and death. The capital of the Reich had not been conquered. It had consumed itself. The flames that engulfed Berlin were not just destroying a city, they were devouring an idea, the myth of racial superiority, the illusion of an eternal empire. The end of Nazi Germany marked not just a military defeat, but the collapse of an entire vision of the world. More than 70 million people had perished in the storm unleashed by that vision. Cities had vanished. Families had been erased. And yet, out of the ashes, the world would rebuild. In the years after the war, the flak towers remained too massive to demolish entirely. Some were sealed. Some were turned into museums. Others still stand today covered in ivy, silent and immovable. Reminders of how power built on fear always ends the same way, in ruins. Historians say the light that filled the Berlin sky that final night was not just the light of burning fuel or exploding shells, it was the light of truth breaking through the darkness. It was history's way of writing its final sentence on the chapter of the Third Reich. The fire that lit the sky was the last heartbeat of tyranny. And when it faded, dawn came, not triumphant, but solemn. A world exhausted, yet alive. A world that had seen the cost of hate written in fire across the heavens. Berlin 1945 was more than the fall of a capital. It was humanity's reckoning. The city of stone and steel had become a mirror, showing mankind its own reflection, capable of greatness, but also of unspeakable horror. The flak towers, those glowing beacons of defiance, stand now as a warning carved in concrete. They remind us that no empire built on fear, no ideology rooted in hate can outlast the truth. The night Nazi Germany fell was not just the end of a war, it was the beginning of a lesson the world must never forget. If you want me to continue this story, the final 48 hours inside Hitler's bunker, the fate of Eva Braun, and the Red Army's race to raise the flag over the Reichstag, comment Berlin 1945 below. Because the flames may have died out, but the echoes of that night still burn in history